It is finally All Hallows Eve, and to celebrate that, I have to find the scariest, most horrifying, creepiest, most disgusting, vile co-host imaginable. Close. Nick from Galador. Apologies for the lack of content last week. We were working on our Resident Evil retrospective video. So a bunch of things happened last week and some stuff is going on right now, and there's lots of news to cover, so I'll try to keep it as brief and informational as possible. But before that, let's hear a word from our sponsor. We owe everything we do here at the Nostalgic Network to our store, Nostalgic Video Games, where we buy, sell, and trade retro to modern video games, toys, and collectibles. With the end of spooky season, the holidays are quickly approaching. It is a fantastic place to get a special and unique gift for that special someone in your life, or if you're just trying to treat yourself. So if you're looking for that special gift, come on down and see us. So the first thing I want to go over is all the announcements from the Silent Hill transmission. We've got a handful of new games announced, and the one that we saw the most of was a Silent Hill 2 remake. It also scared the shit out of Capcom, and they released a ton of new Resident Evil 4 remake footage to combat the hype. That Silent Hill 2 remake looks fantastic. The other projects we saw, Silent Hill F, or Forte, I don't know how to say it, Silent Hill Townfall, they all look really interesting, and I'm really excited that we are finally getting a bunch more Silent Hill content. We are also getting a third movie that is mostly adapting the Silent Hill 2 storyline. Those Silent Hill movies are pretty solid and have a pretty dedicated fan base, so it's awesome to get a sequel, and I hope it draws in even more inspiration from the games than the original installments did. I think using the Silent Hill 2 story as a jumping off point is a very, very good place to go. So we'll definitely keep our eyes and ears out for more news on those. If you want to watch the Silent Hill transmission, the full thing is up on YouTube. It's like 40-something minutes long, I don't know. Next thing I want to talk about is a bunch of new games that just released. Bayonetta 3 came out, and apparently it is great. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but IGN gave it a 9 out of 10. But I mean, we all know that IGN reviews are completely meaningless. But supposedly there's some really cool new gameplay mechanics added, and the new playable character is really fun. The only downside I heard is that the story is a bit lackluster, but it's Platinum Games, so the gameplay is super good. Following up on the drama that was going on with Bayonetta 3 and the fact that the original voice actress for Bayonetta, Helena Taylor, would not be returning, really unclear what is true and what isn't, so I'm not going to present any of this as fact. The developer came out and pretty much said she was not offered that lump sum for the entire game, she was offered it for every single session of 1 to 2 hours, so did Taylor misunderstand, or was it not really clear in the contract? Who knows? There's a whole lot more political rumblings going on here, and it's really important to educate yourself and learn from it. I'm just absolutely not qualified to talk about that. But what I am sort of qualified to talk about is gaming. What are the implications for this on the wider gaming development sphere in general? I think this whole situation has really brought to light a lot of interesting arguments about voice acting and how important it is to games. Are voice actors really compensated effectively for the performances that they give? It's really easy to forget that voice acting isn't just sitting in a booth and talking for an hour. As Helena pointed out in her original video, it takes significant training to get to that point in the industry. Voice acting is not an easy job, and it is really time consuming. The people who do it for a living deserve respect and to be compensated appropriately. What that compensation looks like is up for interpretation. All I have to say is that apparently Bayonetta 3 is really solid, and it's really up to you to make your decision about this whole situation. I am not here to tell you how to feel, that is entirely up to you. Another new game that released recently that I was super excited about was Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet because I was too busy working on a Resident Evil video. Go check it out. And it is a pretty standard asymmetrical multiplayer game like Evil Dead or Dead by Daylight. One player gets to play the ghost and up to 4 other players get to be the Ghostbusters. It's received some relatively mixed reviews saying that the balancing is a bit off and the story leaves a little bit to be desired. But in the end, busting ghosts do maketh one feeleth tip-top shape. I'm just excited to have another new Ghostbusters video game to play. That original one from whenever that was recently remastered is one of my favorite games of all time. I played a ton of it when it came out, and I replayed the absolute hell out of it when the remaster came out. We also got the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. The multiplayer is apparently really fun, and the gunplay is fantastic, but supposedly the single player is just another Call of Duty. It does nothing really new, nothing really spectacular, and overall leaves you wanting. The single player campaigns clearly take a backseat to the multiplayer, and Activision Blizzard and Treyarch really aren't that concerned about giving us a very good story-driven narrative. But it's out and it's fun to play with friends, so if you like Call of Duty and for some reason Haven't checked it out yet? Put it on your list. Now moving on from games that have just recently released, let's look at some games that were announced. CD Projekt Red announced a Witcher Unreal Engine 5 remake of the original game. Yeah, baby, that's what I've been waiting for. All the Witcher games are fantastic, and CD Projekt Red has forged a gaming icon out of a fantastic book series. With the Netflix show that was pretty well received and enjoyed by many, myself included, I think this is a fantastic opportunity to go back and revisit that first game. Personally, out of the games, show, and books, I've always had more of a soft spot for the books, and I really hope that they cook a lot of the first few books into that game. In other Witcher news, Henry Cavill has stepped down from the role of Geralt of Rivia in the Witcher Netflix series. He will be replaced by Liam Hemsworth. I wonder if this has anything to do with Henry Cavill's recent announcement of returning to the Superman role and that much more is to come. If so, maybe it was a worthy trade-off, but we'll just have to wait and see. We also have an update from a story a couple weeks ago about Disco Elysium and the original creative team all being let go from Zam/UM. Apparently Kurvitz, the writer of the original book that Disco Elysium was based on, has sued the company. There hasn't really been any statement released by anybody, but according to court documents, the date is later in November. So maybe we'll see then what the wider story really is, but all we really know right now is that Kurvitz is suing Zam. The last thing I have to talk about today is that God of War Ragnarok has leaked. Like in its entirety. People have posted full playthroughs online, and developers are posting, hey, we're trying to take all this down, but it's impossible for us to keep track of all of it. Please be wary, mute the tags on Twitter and all social medias so you don't get spoiled. Definitely something to be aware of if you're excited for God of War Ragnarok and don't want the game to be spoiled for you. And that's pretty much all I've got today. Tales of the Jedi came out last week sometime, and I enjoyed the absolute hell out of it. It has made Dooku one of my favorite Star Wars characters and added a level of depth to him that really no other piece of media had done before. I also really enjoyed seeing more of Ahsoka's story and seeing a slight retcon/adaptation of the Ahsoka novel by E.K. Johnston that I really enjoyed. It was the first new canon Star Wars book that I read, and it got me into reading a whole lot more of that canon. If you haven't read any of the new canon Star Wars novels, I highly suggest that Ahsoka book, even though its story is slightly retconned by Clone Wars Season 7 and Tales of the Jedi, it's still worth a read. And if you love Clone Wars, you should absolutely read Dark Disciple. We get more Quinlan Voss, and it gives us a nice ending to Asajj Ventress's arc. That book is like reading an arc of the Clone Wars and is absolutely worth your time. Last episode of Andor gave us Andy Serkis. Bit odd. It's not really the first time that we've had an actor playing a different role within Star Wars. Mark Hamill has voiced multiple different droids and things here and there, so it isn't particularly strange, and it's really nice to see Andy Serkis just as a guy, not a mocap suit. We actually get Andy Serkis giving a really, really good performance here. I'm excited to see what happens in the next episode, and we still have a few more here to go, so I'll let you know my final thoughts on the show when it's ended. This has been the Nostalgic Network News, and thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.